Welcome back to Shooting Womp Rats. I'm Daniel.
I'm Don.
And with us today in the hot seat for Kraken's Most Wanted is Stephen Tucker, a representative of Sparks, a gaming group dedicated to Star Wars D6. And, up until, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I had never heard of these people.
I had.
You had? Okay.
I had.
Well, what we're doing here is we're giving them a chance to tell everybody more about themselves and hopefully, maybe get some more people involved because we can use all the people we can out of the community. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Hey, Stephen, come on in. Have a seat. Here, chocolate, a little bit of orange juice, maybe some scrambled eggs. We can turn off the red light now. Come on in, have a seat, get comfortable.
Stephen, what is Sparks?
Sparks is, as you said, an ongoing D6 Star Wars campaign. Started in 1995 by Joe Miller, grown exponentially since then. We have a lot of players, a lot of different judges and authors, pretty much throughout the U.S. and at a few times even outside the U.S. It's an ongoing campaign, so you have to treat it a little bit differently than your standard home campaign. You can't just have one judge making all the rules. You really have to have multiple people working together to iron out the things that the players want to see. One of the biggest things about Sparks is we try to keep it as close to the Star Wars genre, and I mean by that a cinematic campaign, just because there are plenty of other role-playing games out there that cover other specific niches. You have other sci-fi role-playing games. But Star Wars is definitely about the cinematic feel that you're trying to present to your players, and Sparks tries to capture that with every module and every event we put out.
Sounds awesome. Now, a question for you. You've explained to us what Sparks is. What is the driving force behind Sparks? I mean, what's its mandate?
Sparks was originally, as I said, created by one person as part of a gaming group. Originally, it was MGM Grand, and it ended up becoming Game Base 7. But Game Base 7 primarily did board games, but they wanted to branch out and get into role-playing games. And one of the directors of the club was interested in Star Wars, so he started this campaign. Initially, he was the only one. There was only him and a couple of his friends that were doing writing, but he was doing all of the oversight for the campaign. Any questions you had went through him. I was one of the early players in 1995, and basically Joe Miller was able to tap resources, interested players, if they were ones that ran their own home campaigns. He basically brought them on board to start judging, start writing for the campaign, and that's really how it grew. So he was able to find those with the talent and the drive to want to participate in this ongoing community. And then really allow them enough rope to run with and see where it got.
Okay, and so you're saying that it started off as a personal campaign, correct? And then what became something that you... What else does Sparks do? What does it do besides... does it provide someone an already made campaign that if they wanted to run it with their own group they could? Or is it only with your own small group? Or is there something else going on with it?
No, Sparks is specifically for an ongoing campaign format. People have asked over the years, can we get Sparks modules to run at our home campaign? We steer away from that. If you're interested in judging Sparks at a home convention, it's still got to be understood that it's an ongoing campaign. So the material and the content that we have for Sparks is specifically for an ongoing format. And even though it was started by one person, it was never really a personal campaign. It was always set up as an ongoing campaign. Initially, there wasn't a lot of format. There wasn't a lot of group content. It was pretty much using the second edition Blue Book as a source book. And when you sat down, you flipped to the back, you picked the template, you modified it, and you played. But over the years, it's changed quite a bit. When it grew to the point in 1999 where Joe Miller, as one person, couldn't handle basically the amount of content, the amount of questions, the oversight for the campaign, we ended up, he actually came to me and a few other people that had written for the campaign, and he trusted, and he handed over the reins, and we actually formed what we call our Sparks Force 7 Council, and it's a 7-person council that basically now handles the duties that Joe Miller used to do himself. So people are the ongoing community, when they go to different conventions, they can get that consistency. When you sit down with an individual home campaign judge, they have their own home campaign rules. Some things are a little different every time you play because it's that judge's campaign and they have a lot of flexibility to what they can do. With Sparks, we try to set some consistent boundaries for the judges to use. And we totally want the judges to be able to freeform what they need to, basically expand or utilize the rules to their best effect. And being an ongoing format, every time you sit down, the people that you're sitting next to and the people that you're judging for are completely different. So one of the things we try to strive with our judges is to very quickly understand the people sitting across from you, the people that are coming to this convention and paying good money to come to this convention or paying good money to play your event. What do they want to get out of it? Because first and foremost, we're there providing a service for fun. We want these people to come and have a good time, and we want them to come back. If they come and they don't have a good time, they're not going to come back. As judges, you have to recognize what does the group of players want out of the adventure, and you have a plot to stick to, and you have your story to stick to. But the judge has a lot of flexibility of how to present that. Some tables you present it a little bit grittier, other tables a little bit more lighthearted, depending on the age of the group or the feel of the group or the character makeup of the group. But ultimately, we try to stress the cinematic feel of the campaign. We want the players to feel like they're participating in this movie. And when we're all done, when it's all said and done and the module's over with, they feel like they've been in an episode of Star Wars.
You say that this is an ongoing campaign. How in the Star Wars timeline does it work, or have you created your own separate sort of timeline?
A little of both, actually. The campaign was started, and it's the first module is set 10 years before A New Hope. And you have to understand that this was actually done, as I said, in 1995. So a lot of the area where we're playing with, there was no expanded universe information. There was no, the first 3 movies were not out. And so a lot of this material we were pretty much coming up with on our own. What Joe Miller did was he said, we're going to actually be a rebellion cell. We're going to separate it from the rest of the rebellion, and you can interact with them on some level. But he actually made his own sector. He looked at one of the maps, picked out an area, and we made the Crucible sector. And so all the players they're either military members or they're just freelancers working for the Crucible Sector Rebellion. And so with that premise, a lot of times we will travel to other sectors to use other content from the Star Wars universe. But ultimately, that's our home base. That's where we come back to. That's where a lot of our ongoing villains and friends and contacts are located. So we progress through the storyline, and we are setting, allowing the authors to pretty much run with different ideas in that timeline. We have so much content at this point. I actually did a count the other day, and we actually have over 250 individual numbered events, and that doesn't include what we call our seminar or missions or interactive style events, which are not numbered. And those kind of happen, one-time events throughout the timeline. But like what you had mentioned with the timeline issue, that's how the campaign progresses. So Sparks 1 is set 10 years before A New Hope. Sparks 109 is actually where we used our interactive to move through the events of episode 4, A New Hope. And ultimately what that is what was going on in the Crucible sector when Luke and Han and Leia were doing their thing and taking down the Death Star. How did that impact the other sectors? How did that impact the other campaigns? And ultimately with that story, what we ended up doing was there was a large fleet in our area, and we saw reports that fleet was leaving to reinforce some other group. And so we used that as an opportunity to attack an Imperial stronghold, but unbeknownst to us, it was actually a ruse, and they turned the tables on us, and it was an ambush of us. But the way we were writing it out was that fleet, if they really did leave and reinforce the Death Star, then perhaps the Rebel heroes would not have been successful in Star Wars: A New Hope.
All right, so let me make sure. I'm just asking for clarification here. Sparks is essentially, and I only use this because it's something that everybody readily knows. Sparks is pretty much, like you said, it's an ongoing campaign. So it's kind of like Forgotten Realms. It's a campaign setting, ongoing, with a great deal of history and some tweaks to make it your own.
Correct.
Okay. And then you were talking about it's an ongoing campaign. Is this something that you play on a regular basis? Is it something you only do at conventions? Do you guys have like a home group that plays, or several groups that play? And if so, are they playing at home? Are they playing virtual tabletops? What are they doing?
Well, this being the ongoing format, it is pretty much just for conventions. We do allow what we call game day events, where you can schedule with your local comic book store, or you can schedule an event at some kind of location, but it has to be announced pretty much to everybody, and everybody has to be able to be invited to it. So we try and frown upon any kind of in-home play, but sometimes the game days are set in someone's home, something like that, but it has to be open for everyone to come and play. We participate in a number of conventions. Obviously, Gen Con was the biggest one every August, but we've also run a lot of stuff at Origins and several other conventions pretty much throughout the Midwest area, and we're even getting into the South. We have several conventions we support down in West Virginia, Marcon, Charcon, Columbus, Ohio. It has Origins. We support conventions up in Milwaukee, Sheboygan, several in the Chicago area, just because that is where a lot of our membership was centered for a long time. But we also had people run events in Texas and Colorado. So pretty much that content can be run anywhere. And one of the things you had mentioned before is, can anyone just take this and run this at home? Well, if you got a copy of the module, I suppose you could, but it would not be considered a tracked event, where we actually track the characters with their updates, who their contacts are, how many character points they gained, what events they have played in, and which ones they could play in the future. And with that, if you ran something off the books, if you would, then it wouldn't really count towards that same ongoing character. Some people have run the events in a home campaign setting to try and improve their judging skills, or to get them more familiar with judging for a group, because they feel more comfortable judging for their obviously home group instead of an ongoing group. Because as I said, it is different when you don't know who's going to be sitting at the table. And you don't necessarily know the characters. You have to figure out that information very quickly and be able to adapt your play style to be able to give them what they want, because ultimately it's for their enjoyment, and make sure that they enjoy the event.
You say that the characters are tracked. So let me understand this. When an event is placed at a con or a public event, the judge makes an after-action report and sends it to you, and you apply what characters did and apply it to your campaign that way?
Actually, we have update sheets for the characters, and the judges will hand them out. And on that update sheet, it will tell them how many force points they spent, how many force points they earned, dark side points if they earned them, character points earned, character points spent. It has a section for advancement, equipment gained or lost, and then for notes. And the player has that information. Then usually at periodic times, player will submit that information and we'll put it into a database. For the longest time, we haven't really had a good database system, and so we've kind of fallen behind with tracking on some of the characters, but we still require the players to have this update sheet. So basically, if a judge says, well, where did you get that? They could flip back through their update sheets and say, oh, it was Sparks 86,